It can feel less like finding someone and more like, I don't know, endlessly scrolling through a slightly broken catalog sometimes.
Uh-huh. It's definitely complex.
Yeah, confusing and frankly pretty draining for a lot of people.
It really is. And that's exactly what this collection of sources we're looking at digs into. We're doing a deep dive today into these excerpts that explore this intense tension
Tension between what exactly?
between having what feels like infinite dating options, the struggle people feel with commitment, and, that basic human search for a real connection underneath it all.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is really to pull out the key insights from these materials.
Yeah, try to help you cut through some of the noise.
Exactly. Understand the core dynamics shaping dating now. We'll unpack, the sheer volume of choices. Why sticking with one person feels so tricky for some. How tech has, well, the sources say fundamentally rewired things.
Right. Not just changed it, but rewired it.
And the sort of emotional fallout from all that.
Okay, so one of the really big arguments across these sources is about the paradox of choice.
Yes, I've heard of that. More isn't always better.
Precisely. It seems like more options should be good, right? But the research we looked at highlights how, especially with dating apps, this huge number of profiles can actually cause, well, significant decision paralysis.
Paralysis. So people just freeze.
Kind of. Instead of confidently picking someone, they get stuck just evaluating endless possibilities. It often leads to, analysis paralysis.
Or just making snap judgments.
Exactly. Or, as one source put it, making choices based on really shallow things just to make a choice, any choice.
Okay, so it's not just that there are lots of people, but the actual process of sifting through them is draining and maybe makes it superficial.
That's the idea. And the sources draw a pretty direct line from that paralysis, that constant scanning, to the commitment issues we see.
How so?
Well, one article discussed how the constant possibility that someone's slightly better is just one swipe away. It fuels this really powerful FOMO, fear of missing out.
Right, the dating FOMO.
Yeah, and it's specific here. The sources suggest this makes people way less likely to actually invest real time and, emotional energy in one person. They're always kind of keeping one eye on the next potential match.
That makes a lot of sense, unfortunately. And technology, the apps themselves, must be the engine driving this whole thing.
Oh, absolutely. The sources have a lot to say there. Beyond just providing the platform for all these options, the material suggests apps have really changed the norms, the expectations. Like, one finding noted how the swiping itself, it's sort of gamified.
Yeah, it feels like a game sometimes.
Right. And it reduces that first interaction to just like a hot or not split-second decision. It often prioritizes that fleeting excitement over really thinking about compatibility.
And that, the sources argue, leads to some of the behaviors we hear about all the time.
Exactly. Things like ghost up.
Breadcrumbing.
Oh, yeah.
That stuff.
Precisely. The sources spend time on the emotional ripples from those actions. Ghosting isn't just rude. The research says it can seriously mess with self-esteem.
Because there's no closure. Right.
Exactly. It triggers feelings of inadequacy, confusion, and breadcrumbing, just sending enough texts to keep someone interested, but with no real intention. One source described it as creating this constant state of, like, low-level anxiety and false hope.
Wow. So these aren't just minor annoyances. The sources frame them as, like, real emotional costs of dating today.
They really do. It's a significant toll.
It definitely paints a challenging picture, but the sources don't just leave us there, right? Do they offer any insights on how to navigate this, how to find something genuine?
They did, though maybe less detailed on solutions than on the problems. But
Right.
the key takeaway seems to be about conscious intention, shifting your focus.
How so?
Well, several points hinted at recognizing these pitfalls, the paralysis, the FOMO, the superficiality, and actively deciding to counteract them.
So being aware of how the system works?
Yeah, and maybe, like one suggestion implied, focusing less on the number of matches and more on the quality of the interaction once you do connect. Maybe even limiting time spent swiping to cut down on that feeling of overload.
Okay, so it's about awareness of the platform's design and then making deliberate choices to engage differently, not just letting the app dictate how you date.
Exactly that. Acknowledge that the platform pushes certain behaviors and then consciously choose to prioritize depth, genuine communication. Basically push back against the endless browsing cycle, as the sources seem to suggest.
So reflecting on this deep dive then, the sources highlight this tension. Overwhelming choices leading to paralysis, FOMO getting in the way of commitment, tech amplifying it all, and these real emotional consequences like from ghosting. It's clear modern dating has these unique hurdles. But the underlying message seems to be that understanding these forces is step one.
Right. It's the first step towards navigating them more effectively and hopefully, yeah, finding more meaningful connections. It really highlights that while we have all this access,
Unprecedented access.
yeah, forming deep bonds still takes active, thoughtful effort. You kind of have to swim against the digital current sometimes.
That really sums it up. So a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Given everything these sources outline about choice overload and that fear of missing out, how might you approach navigating this digital dating world differently, specifically to foster more meaningful connections? Something to consider next time you pick up your phone.